I am YamatoCannon, and this is Muffin, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Reflections, and my guest for this one is a return guest. It is Nukeduck, currently of XL in the LEC, but if people know, the last one we did, I think, was in 2015. It was when you were in ROCCAT, and obviously at that point in time, you'd had a couple of years in your pro career. Interestingly enough, actually, I want to start there, because one thing you said in this interview that I've actually quoted many times on talk shows, and it just shows actually how I think your generation of League of Legends pros had a different vision of what a career in esports was like, because the early people from Season 1, Season 2, a lot of them, obviously most of them didn't make it that far, and because there was so many limited spots, like there was 8 spots in EU LCS and 8 spots in LCS, basically, an example would be someone like Extinct, right? He was a skilled player, but he had a very short career, and obviously he could just quit, and he didn't last long. There's a bunch of people back then where their career was, it'd be like 2 or 3 years, or they'd be on a good team, but if they kicked off that team, they just retire, they just say, fuck it. And so, because at this point in time, in 2015, you'd been through that shit year with fucking Nip, where you couldn't qualify, and then you got banned. Then we came to the ROCCAT years, and obviously, you had some good players on paper, but it never properly worked out. And it's like, you're not in a great position. You're not like at Lemondogs where you can go to Worlds, win LEC, obviously ULCS back then. And so I asked you towards the end of this interview, because I was having sort of like a downer vibe, and I basically sort of said, like, how much longer do you see yourself playing? Like, will you play like another year or something? And you said something to me like, what do you mean? Like, I like League of Legends. I'm just going to keep playing. And like, you were like, I could easily play like 5 more years. So like, by the way, this will be 6 years after that interview. So I want to ask on that note, like, what is the mentality towards the career been like for you? You've obviously had periods like when you had last year and early this year where maybe it looked like you were getting pushed out of the scene or people didn't believe in you. Are you just like a League of Legends lifer? Will you be here 5 more years if the LEC's around? What's it like?
Yeah, so I like to play and I like to compete. So like my mindset is just I like to do it, and it's like kind of a viable career. It's not like back then where you got like less than McDonald's salary,
True.
So at that point it was like, if you don't really love it, you kind of should probably do something else. But now it's like a viable career path. So that's and I enjoy it. So yeah, I'll just probably keep doing it, and then. Yeah, at some point probably everyone gets pushed out, right? But
yes.
So yeah, I'll probably just keep going until that. For now, at least, that's my thought. Yeah.
Right, a lot of pros, like you just said there, you still love it, you still like it. That's what a lot of fans might not know, is a lot of pros get into this mentality where it's like, they got into League of Legends because they like the game, and they got good because they like the game. But a lot of them, once they get to the pro level, like they only really now care about competing or being on a good team. And some of them even say publicly they don't even like the game, like they flame the game, the way it's balanced all the time. Obviously, if they ever play any role like ADC, it's just 24/7 crying, we all know that. But
Yep.
My question to you is this, because actually I think you're in a rare group of people. It's not that many people on the list, mate. It's people like Bjergsen, Froggen, like players who, as far as I can tell, genuinely just love League of Legends, the game, and then competing as well. So, like, what do you like about League of Legends? What keeps you interested in the game? Why do you keep playing it so much?
I do have fun when I play the game, and I do think the game is very well made. And even though like sometimes there is some things that are unbalanced, they have made the game better and better, definitely. Like, it's like quicker pace and everything like that. And I also like the feeling that you can compete kind of anytime in solo. You kind of like, I look at it kind of as a competition, because it is, right. And
Sure.
But of course the main enjoyment is to compete in the game. But just the game itself I like to, but I wouldn't, let's say, play a normal game. I would not find that entertaining. Right. So it's definitely also a bit that solo queue is also like a kind of competitive environment that also makes that fun.
Right, when I ask a question about mid lane role, right, I am going to say, just for the sake of the people who play the other roles, most of us agree mid lane has been the most OP role, especially in competitive play. There's a reason why like people like Faker are the one that have all the world championships, Rookie, or people like that. Like, you don't tend to find a bad mid laner win LEC, win worlds. Like, it's probably the hardest role to win from, has the most game impact. But actually, in the last few years, people might argue it isn't like the Season 3, Season 4, Season 5 period where, if you have like a monster player in mid lane, he gets fed, he has all the champions, he carries the whole game. In the modern day, like, obviously top lane can be mega impactful, the jungles and support are way more powerful than back in the day. Do you actually find like mid lane the role, is it still as enjoyable to play?
Well, no, but we were just pretty spoiled back then. For example, back in season 3, if you would win your if you would win your lane, the enemy jungle could probably not gank you because he was like so behind in level. So we would actually 1 versus 2 them, and their jungler would usually not have any damage or anything like that. So in the earlier seasons, mid was more fun because it was straight up broken, right? In season 3, 4, 5, and even in 6 as well. So now it's a bit more tuned with the game, and you kind of have to be a bit more of, like you just play around kind of what your jungler wants to do. At least now talking for solo queue, and
Sure.
you're like a little bit more of you help people out and shit now rather than just just carrying everything. And if you get ahead, you can just win easily. So yeah, it's definitely different, yeah, and it's a bit less fun, but I'm at peace with it. I understand why it has to be this way.
Right, you were the guy, actually, when you were on that Lemondogs team, where I remember the famous story that actually, I think it was in one of my interviews, that Tabs told of being in that team. And this is obviously, part of it's, as you're saying, the role strength, the fact that assassins are there. He told this story where basically he said, if you played with Nukeduck back then, it would be like, you'd be like, oh, great, there's a load of minions near my tower. And he was like, no, you're going to mid lane now. I'm going to roam down there. I'm taking all of it, because you'd be like Zed or something, I'll take all that farm. And then, obviously, I'm going to carry the game, aren't I? Which, by the way, it wasn't even the wrong way to play. It's how everyone in Europe played. Like, Schalke would probably do the same thing if it was the game, But what I want to ask is this. What it has, over the years, has your philosophy on how you play as a team changed? Do you still see yourself as, like, if I can carry, if I can get my champions, if I can win lane, then we're going to win the game? What's your philosophy on, like, the team side of the game?
No, I have changed it a bit. Like, back then... it was a different meta, kind of, like back then people were also like stuck that, ADC was the hard carry of the team. But in our team, I kind of thought that it was better if mid and top was like, let's say if you had carry position 1, 2, 3, the one that like get prioritized farm.
Yes.
I thought it should be like mid top AD instead of in most teams. Back then it was like AD mid top.
Yes.
So I just thought like you should put ADC on the bottom because they don't do that much unless you actually team fight. But also back then ADC players and supports were like not actually like good at like doing stuff. Like now in modern day, if the bot lane is ahead, they would usually like have great pressure on the map. But back then they would just sit and farm for team fights. Yes. So I just figured that if we have if we get our top and mid ahead, we will usually just like split push both sides, and they couldn't do anything. And as for modern day, I still kind of feel like if I get ahead and my jungle get ahead, then it's like easier to close the game as opposed to like other roles getting ahead. But that's just a feeling of mine, but it doesn't really like reflect that much in my calls and my gameplay. It's like I think any role right now can pretty much carry, and wherever we can build a lead in early game, we should probably just go for that. It's like not you usually don't have the luxury to just choose wherever. It depends, like what the opponent's drafts and whatnot. So I do have a slight preference, yes, but in the end, you can't always choose it, and it's important to dive side lanes at least. Like that's the most important role you have as a mid laner almost.
One thing that did carry on, at least for a few years after this Season 3 era, was the concept that if you are the mid laner, you are fed, you can just be the monster split push press. And obviously you did this many, many times, especially in the latter years. Now, obviously we went through a period, I would say like a year ago or something, where they sort of like limited that because everyone's just fighting for dragons. And plus, if the champions in the mid lane are like, or Azir, you're not really going to do that in the same way. But it's been a defining factor of your career. I've even thought, what's interesting is when people thought you were slumping, those are the years and weren't the best mid laner. If anything, you were still one of the absolute best at split pushing. Now, in your teams, I did notice it was basically always you. Like, if Vizicsacsi or Alfaria, like, I don't know, if you're even slightly comparable, it's going to be you that playing split pushes. What is your philosophy on the game in that sense? If it's available, do you actually think split pushing is the best way a mid laner can play?
If you can get like ahead of doing it, then yes, but you can't. It's not a win condition anymore to split push. So the win condition is still team fighting almost in like 99% of the games almost. But you can side lane to get like XP and gold leads, and the tier 2 turrets are are very valuable. So right now you just kind of split push to get ahead if you have the opportunity to do so. But it's not like you know, in other seasons where you kind of like ended the game on side, or like you took inhibitor, you know what we were doing kind of in season 8 and 9, where we would like backdoor their Nexus after split pushing down their inhibitors. I don't see that as like happening anymore. So it's also because people are better, but also because Dragon is like very, very strong to take right now. So yeah, it's just more split pushing, more of a tool to get ahead right now. That's how I see it.
When it was this era where you could do this and you could be very powerful and you were one of the best mid laners in LEC, I wanted to actually ask the question, which is, right, we've seen plenty of people who try that style. I even see Hooney sometimes still does it in TSM if he has a champion, right? But famously, it's a massive gamble if you're not someone who has like a very good read on when to go back and group with the team again. Like obviously if you over push, beyond scenarios where, you know, sometimes the pressure's worth it. Sometimes, you know, people do just greed and then they just die over and over again. They sort of give up whatever they were getting back in the gold. So my question for you is, you always seem to have a very good read on when to do that. Like when you could stay, when you can gamble, when you have to group again, when you should back off. How much of that was like just amount of games played, calculation? Was it intuitive? Was it just feel? How do you become really good at that?
I mean, how do you, I'm not sure how you become really good at it, but what can help me is that I usually am very involved in like how the entire team kind of plays. So I know if I want, you know, the top laner to contest that wave or not, or the bot lane on this wave or not. So it's easy for me to kind of see like what the team needs from me, because I understand very well, you know, like how the whole map kind of plays together, and then I can also understand why or like what the opponents are looking to do. And if they are getting like just fucked in tempo, then most likely they just gonna try to kill me, and then you know, like, yeah, so I can kind of predict a bit what they want to do, and I can also kind of play in sync with my teammates easier because of that. Yeah, I think that's what helped me the most to do this.
Even though what I'll do is we'll basically act like, obviously it isn't tomorrow, but this is just after the other reflections and we won't cover the old school shit, you know, we'll just go forwards and ask about the other years. I had one question about that ROCCAT period, just because if a fan came and pulled up the Leaguepedia and they went down and they looked at your career, one of the things that's not going to make any sense is they're going to go, holy fuck, he played with Jankos? But obviously this is like second year of his career, Jankos, you know, it's like a much different version. So I want to just ask this, when you look back now, what do you think didn't work? Because something about you two, you were both clearly still very good players at your positions, but it did seem like there was like a disconnect or something. You know, it didn't seem like the great jungle mid synergy.
I mean, I think we didn't know how to really play the game well during ROCCAT, and we were not like, it was kind of in like the really early stages of League where. Like, for example, the support and jungle going for vision together so you can play aggressive was not something that was, like, normal back then. So we were kind of just... Everyone was kind of winging it until we got Yamato, and he learned us those concepts, which was the one that Samsung White used to win the Worlds the previous year. And I think after that we became a pretty good duo. Like, I thought I had a pretty decent synergy with Jankos, and towards the end, when we kind of got the fundamentals of the game kind of set in stone, we were actually a pretty decent team, I think. And we did, in the end, you know, we peaked way too late, but we took Origen at the time to 5 games for Worlds. And
for regional.
Yeah, and they ended up, you know, 3-0ing Unicorns of Love, and I do think we would have produced a similar result. So I like... In the end, we just used too much, like we neglected the basics, let's say, or didn't know it, or we were maybe doing it sometimes, but it was not conscious, and that's why our team kind of just like, we just didn't do anything because we didn't do like the first steps, and but yeah, the roster was really good. Jankos pretty like he still has the same today, you know. Was like super good mechanically, and he understood what the enemy jungler wanted to do. So I think at the end we were good, but yeah, it was lacking was definitely our like fundamentals.
Since you mentioned YamatoCannon there, I actually want to know about that because that's actually an interesting detail. Because if people go back and listen to that old reflections, you actually explain the same concept. You say, actually, by the way, way ahead of anyone else. I don't think any pro player had ever said this on a show. You explain that, like, actually, what changed League of Legends was when Samsung White won Worlds, and basically everyone just copied how they split the map using the jungle and the support and played around Vision for the whole next year, like that. Every team basically. Now you're saying like Yamato taught you that. Well, here's the thing you might not know. I don't know if you know this publicly. Now he's in Fnatic and he's made Worlds. I think people sort of starting to give him credit now. But before that, dude, there was a lot of people, not just fans, even like, you know, other coaches who they were always mega salty about him because since he always like was about like, you know, he had a cool voice and he's very good on camera and the sharp suits, they always wanted to make it that he was like a fraud and that, you know, that's all he was doing. He was like, he seemed cool, but really he doesn't know fucking anything about the game. What was he like as a coach? I know you were only with him for like a year at the time. What was it like in that sense?
Oh, no, he basically came in and saved the team. Like we didn't even make playoffs the split before in the spring split, and we got him for relegations. He joined ROCCAT after the split time when we were gonna practice for the relegation matches, and basically what he was doing the whole time was he was doing very good stuff for the team. So we were very bad, and he came in and he said, "Okay, I want to change the AD carry player." And at the time, I told him like, no, like we should not do that, like because I like to play with Woolite, and I thought he was pretty good, and I didn't see a reason to change him. But anyway, he kind of enforced his decision, and he got Rallis, which was more like a stable player because he knew that he wanted to teach us, you know, the kind of how to play the game. And then he just did that, and he was very focused on like individual decision making sure everyone has, you know, agency in doing their own decisions that's supposed to help the team. And in the end, I think it turned us around from being like quite bad to being able to actually use all the strengths. And it was just not enough, but I think he did a really good job. And I don't think and many other coaches could do what he did back then to help us. So I think it's very good.
When you came and you joined the Vitality roster when it first came to EU LCS, the first lineup you had, actually on paper, is fire, even when I look at it now. You had Cabashard, who obviously was becoming really good at that time, was one of the best top laners. I know people are going to think like Schalke was shit because he was on Elements or whatever. Like, that guy, if you ever watched him in Solo, he had mad mechanics. Obviously, he was a really skilled player. And then the bot lane of Hjarnan and Kasing, which came from H2K before. Listen, I was never like a huge Hjarnan fan, but he knows how to play ADC. Like his style fits. And then Kasing, actually, at the time, was like quite good mechanically. He was pretty good player. When you made this team, did you actually think this team was going to do big shit in LEC?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it would be good. Like, I thought it was what happened? So basically, I re-signed with ROCCAT. They told me like they were going to try to get those and those players, and then it turned out they were not going to do it, and they were like, didn't want to spend like any money. So that's when we started to look for like new options, and yeah, I thought the team would be good. Yeah, like at the time the landscape was pretty open. I think in EU LCS it was like 2016, like because Fnatic.
This is the year G2 came in and stuff. Yeah, like lost the players.
And Origen did some changes, perhaps.
Yeah, they changed out Expecke for Power of Evil. There was a whole bunch of changes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very open. So yeah, I thought we could be pretty good at the time. Yeah, I thought so.
Because obviously the thing about this team was then you had like from what I remember, I'm pretty sure this is correct. That was the one where right before playoffs they did a patch that sort of like nerfed fucking Cabashard and he had to play like Nautilus and stuff top lane instead of like carries. And then also over the rest of this year there was all sorts of like just player changes all over the place going into the next year. Like you just ended up having like Koreans coming in and people coming from like fucking people that are in ERLs now. Like eventually the lineup just went all over the place. Now I've heard even to this day and back then Vitality was an org that had money in theory. Like in theory, if they could have been convinced, they could have bought good players. How do you remember your Vitality period overall?
Yeah, that's a 2-year period. But yeah, the first year was it went. We were kind of like playing. Yeah, Cabashard was kind of like we were playing a bit off meta, I would say, and. Cabashard was like kind of this back then. Cabo is a completely different player to what he is now, and also like different person as well. So back then he was like he really demanded everything, and it like worked to a certain extent. But basically, like I never played with my jungler in this team. Like we never pretty much.
He was just going top all day.
Or bot, because my bot also was similar. So it was that like in this team, I was basically just trying to, like kind of facilitate or whatever. So I was playing a lot of different stuff. But I had I had no synergy with my jungle basically. So in the end, when we came so in the regular season it was fine, but in the playoffs when we faced Fnatic, we could not deal with it. Bebeven and Spirit basically just carried all the games because our tactic of just going top or bot or lane swapping with carries, it just didn't work anymore, or it didn't work when people figured it out, either or, and then we just lost. And then after that, I shouldn't go over all the roster swaps. I guess,
just a general sense.
Yeah, it was all right. I do think the team was a bit misguided at some points. I do think so. A big thing was that they kind of let Cabochard run the team when he was the carry, let's say, when he had that mentality. And I think that was not the best idea because I just think it wasn't good. But then the next year at some point he kind of matured, or not matured, but realized that as a top laner, you're not always gonna be the carry, and you have to kind of learn to play properly, not just always take the aggressive trade and the solution be that people play around you. So then it became different, and then but again I think there was a bit misguided. They were too I think when I was there they were too hyped on the French players because maybe because of their brand or something. So I did, for example, tell them back in 2017 after we played a spring split when we had 2 Koreans and we had the French people, and everyone was mental booming. In my team I had only French and Koreans, also the coach, and so it was a French camp and the Korean camp.
Okay.
And I told him at the end of the split that it was it didn't work, and he wanted to ask me what I should do for the next year, and I told him just get you should get for this was going into 2017 summer. I told him you should get Upset as AD carry, you should get Vander and some other players back then, and he just wouldn't listen to him. They wouldn't listen to me because they wanted to keep their French core, I guess. Or I don't know if I think I might have wanted to keep playing with Joko because I had good synergy with him, but at least I told him about some changes, but they didn't want to listen to me. They were but they they had contracts, so it's not that easy for them, I'm sure.
Of course,
but, I just think that I would have done things differently than them, and they didn't listen to me that much. But they had many voices to listen to, so they had to pick one. But I just think it was not always right.
Certainly. Okay, one thing I want to ask about was, actually, even in the years when people, on the ROCCAT years, when maybe the team was a bit messy, etc., one thing that was always a defining factor of your career, and I think, unfortunately, people think it's a meme because obviously Deficio overplayed, the Champion Ocean or whatever, and he made it a half meme, but people don't know it's true. Actually, if people go and look at your career, not only would you pretty much always have a bunch of the meta champions, but you were a guy who was in solo queue, working on other things, watching Faker or someone in Korea do something with a champion, when they played Varus mid or whatever the fuck, And I noticed you would always have stuff that you were either bringing in or maybe it's they have to ban it or something. Is this always been your philosophy? You always want to have a wide champion? Well, I know some mid laners, if they just certain champ, Power of Evil's an obvious example. If he can just get a Zero and Oriana, he'll play that till the end of time, He just thinks of himself as an Oriana main or something. So has it always been your philosophy to work on and experiment with the champion pool?
Well, yeah. I mean, as a very baseline, I always think that I should play all the meta champs and all the relevant meta counters. That should be my baseline. I in my mindset, if you don't play that, you are kind of bad. I feel that's how I feel, that if you can't draft in every meta way, then you're kind of hindering your team, and that's not good. So for me, that's the baseline, and if I manage to do that, then I can think about something else that is that can also work, that is then I'll just branch out if I have more time and I feel like it, let's say. But I'm always trying to reach that baseline in any meta, that to make sure that I can play all the all the champs and that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, of course, it's I'm trying to do it. Yeah.
I noticed another thing is because one defining factor of all your career has been you've had a lot of really good top laners, no matter what the team was like, you've often had very good top lane players. I noticed also you tended to also play a bunch of stuff that could basically be flexed between top and mid. You know, you played champions like Gangplank, let me think, one on. You would play a bunch of the ones where typically they would be the top lane, but you might take it mid as well.
Yeah, sure. But yeah. But both of the when I played Gangplank, it was it a flex? I think we were mostly
Can you
playing
actually
it.
swap the lane as well?
I mean, I could go top sometimes. Yeah, I have experimented with that as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I like just if there is a flex pick, it's kind of the same. I kind of apply the same mindset that it's like it's kind of required for me to play it because it's important for the team that you are allowed to flex. Like if there is like, let's say, Ornn is a very strong top lane, but you can't pick him because the enemy can like hard counter pick him, then it's actually like my responsibility to make sure that I can also play the Ornn so the opponents cannot hard counter pick my Ornn, right? That's so I feel like that's just gonna be my responsibility to do that then. So to make sure that the team can draft properly. So yeah, but when I did play Ornn in Origen, you know, like mostly the Ornn was not really like that much of a flex, you know. It was more for me, and then you know, like Barney takes.
It was a pretty good champion, I can't lie. It's fucking banging, yeah. It's not really an Alfari champion.
Yeah, exactly.
True. All right, obviously, you kind of set it up for me there. When you said, I basically told them in Vitality, remember the year, it was like 2017 or whatever, you were like, just get Upset and Vander and then some other players. Well, obviously, if anyone knows your career, that is Schalke, the next team that you go to. And at the time, I want to ask about this actually. People don't know this because on the one hand, I noticed people like when he was a sub for G2 and stuff, people love to claim now, like, yeah, we always knew Upset was so talented and, you know, we were just waiting for him to become the next star player. But I noticed actually, loads of teams passed on this guy a million times. Like, I'd always hear the rumours, like, you know, this team is going to get a new ADC. And his name would be in the mix, but they'd never be the one that he picked, you know, they'd pick someone else, right? When you actually got to play with Upset, basically you alluded to, like, you already knew he was going to be really good, right? You played with him obviously later in your career as well. Tell me something about this player. Who is he? What's his mentality?
Yeah, so he is really good, and also we became like we are good friends, like even like way before we played in Schalke together. But yeah, he's basically like the kind of player that plays super well mechanically, and he works really hard. And he also has kind of he has like a sixth sense kind of that other people don't have about like when you can make a play. So he kind of isn't really like that restricted by like normal way of thinking. So he will just see something, and he will, even though it normally wouldn't be an opportunity, he can see just because like some really small detail change, he can see an opportunity present itself easily. And that's not something that I've had with like any other players really. Like he has like just a special eye for that. So that just makes him like really, really good. I suspect Hyllisang might have a similar thing though. So like now he's like completely insane.
He's unleashed now, isn't he? Yeah, exactly.
And so basically playing with him was it's also like a very big personality that you also have to kind of deal with. It's he's the kind of player that if you don't have other people in the team that like make calls and talk and get stuff going, he's gonna just completely take over. And I think for him it's important that he has someone on the team that is like that he doesn't have to be, you know, the main voice in the team. That's important that like he can kind of use that thing to like find the right place, but then like the overarching plan, it's easier for him to like do his best if that comes from someone else. So yeah, I think it's important that he has like strong and confident players around him, because otherwise they might just like only like follow his calls and only get absorbed in that, you know, and he's usually taking into consideration like his own champion, his own matchup mainly when he's talking to this. So I would say, yeah, it's a very good weapon, but I think also that's he probably, you know, he keeps like improving those things, so it might even be like better now than when we played together as well. Yeah.
Right, when you had the Schalke team, and I'm mainly going to talk about the summer one because who gives a fuck about the spring one. When you had the one where Amazing came in towards the end and then you made the playoff run, right, I don't blame you for losing that final. Like that Fnatic team, obviously they went to the final of Worlds. People know they were pretty insanely good.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to ask was this, right, that's an example of a year where as much as normally, right, the way the circuit was designed back then, if people don't know, is like in theory, because it uses like circuit points, but also like winner of summer and then like, you know, like a gauntlet. In theory, it's like you've got 3 ways to qualify. But that year was one that was really weird because obviously Fnatic won, so they go as number 1 seed. And then who was the team that went as well? Oh, it was
Vitality.
G2.
No,
Vitality, that was like,
yeah.
yes, Vitality got to be the circuit point team or whatever the fuck. And then you had to go through the regional, but it meant that in the regional, you had to play that fucking Perks, Wonder, Yankos one in the final. Like, that might be the hardest fucking regional final team you could ever face. Like, obviously, they made top 4 Worlds. So I've always wondered on that one, what if Schalke could have gone to Worlds that year? What do you think would have happened?
I think we were kind of meta dependent. And I think the world's meta was not good for us. So I think it would have been kind of hard because our core tactic was always to play like kind of a tank scaling jungler and a tank top. And then basically we would play like kind of like a scaling team, I would say.
Okay.
And we would play a lot of tanks, so our team fights would be strong. But the meta shifted away from that, and I would say our team, I don't think it would be as good for us. Like I think we were kind of helped by the meta a bit, and then Worlds. I mean, we would try to adapt, but I do suspect that we would have like a lower level than what we. I think the meta fit all of our players perfectly, kind of during the regular split and the playoffs. And I suspect that we would have like had like worse performance if we would like try to play like the new meta.
Okay. One thing I did want to ask about, because I just recently did one of these Reflections interviews with Vizicsacsi, actually, and I was really shocked, dude, because as you're outlining here, when I think of his career, I think of like tank weak side player, play some bruisers that are a bit off meta, and just be really good at that, you know. But what's crazy in this interview was, he actually sort of said one of the reasons he even wants to come back to play now is that he actually regrets in his career that he was sort of too much like the sacrificial player. He just sort of went along with it when people wanted to be the carry, and he had to be the weak side, and just he kind of, like, you know, he did picks for the team or whatever. So he kind of feels like he should have like demanded to carry sometimes, or he should have asked for a carry champion or whatever. Did you ever get this vibe playing with him? Because like I say, from the outside, I was very shocked, dude. I thought he was going to be like, oh, do I'm there? Be like, I love playing weak side. It's just my shit or whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, I remember how this went in the team because you know that's like was an ongoing discussion in our our team, of course, and it was more that let's say the first half of summer split would go kind of back and forth. It would be like mostly Upset would really enjoy to play with the tank top because it's perfect. We can play around bot, and in team fights he got the tank. So for him that's perfect. And other people also saw that, you know, with that we would be winning games, or like we were winning games with tanks very much because I don't know, people really like to gank Chachi because he also does sometimes like plays really aggressive and dies.
He would die fairly often, sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's not the kind of player that really like it doesn't change anything. I feel like if you gank Chachi, like he still like has like really high impact. So in the end, it was kind of perfect for our team because if he was on a tank and they were focusing him, like we would just always win the game that way. Like
sure.
And if they also try to match to play the same way we play, then we would also have a pretty good chance at winning. So it was a discussion. You know, Chachi wanted to sometimes play carries because of course it gets boring to play like 5 games every practice day of tanks, and there was kind of like ongoing argument about it, and then at some point in like I think it's like week 5 or 6, Chachi just says to us like, "Okay, guys, I will only play tanks from now on," and then he just played tanks like the whole rest of the time, pretty much. So yeah, I mean that's basically what happened, and I do think it was the best way to play for our team as well. I think I think that was the best way of doing it, and then. When the meta shifted and we should in G2 in Gauntlet, then in this meta having a carry top probably could have been a different maker, but we had so limited practice from finals until that, and
Sure.
we were kind of, to be honest, we were kind of like a little bit sick and burned out before we played against G2. So, and they also had a better read on the meta, so back then it could be. But yeah, overall, I think Chachi on tanks was beneficial for our roster. I definitely think so.
Fair enough. Right, when you came to the switch to go and make Origen, when we came to the LEC, right, obviously, I think the most, for some reason, when I listen to fans talk about the old days, right, they just always go, yeah, G2 was the best, and then it was just G2 and Fnatic. And it's like, you've just forgotten that spring split entirely. Like, what are you on about? Origen was the second best team. And in fact, at this time, true, on paper, G2 did have like a super team, you know, like a fucking ridiculous set of players. But I remember even looking at that Origen lineup and being like, this is a really well put together. Like, Deficio fucking killed it if he's the one that made this squad together. Like, every player in theory was like one of the better players at their role, if not like a contender for best player. Mithy even seemed like he was doing a good job in terms of whatever he does in the team. Like, the team had a great style of play, looked like you could play however you wanted. This first version before the team went to shit, what would you tell me about this spring lineup of Origen? Am I overhyping it?
I don't know about like how good everyone was individually, but how we played, and it was good. Yeah, like it was really good. I mean, we were very lucky that we managed to get mithy as a support because we didn't have much like budget left, and mithy was open, and people were kind of, you know, like they thought because mithy is old and he didn't do that.
He's washed up, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we were able to get mithy when the Fisher told me that there is a chance we can get like mithy or like these players. I was like, okay, really, really gotta get mithy, and so we got him, and then that just helped a lot. And then we also had, you know, strong lanes. Like Patrick was obviously really good, and so was Barney, and so was Cold as well. So when we played like the kind of controlled style, we were pretty good. We could beat most, but if it was like kind of chaotic game, then we were like not as good. So we would usually lose against G2 in like chaotic games, I would say. But
Sure.
yeah, but we could beat every other team with like just like we could control the game and we could probably win. Yeah, that's how I felt. Yeah.
What is it like in that sense? Because obviously you'd played with mithy so far back in your career. I mean, almost like a ridiculous amount of time back when he'd just come in at EU LCS. Then he went through that period where you saw he was in Origen, he's in G2, he's in these like top amazing Western teams. And all the players I ever talked to in those teams. It's funny because in my interview I did with him, he told me to not call him a shot caller and I shouldn't call him a captain because he doesn't do that. But then he said some weird line like, all I do is just get all 5 people to be on the same page and do the same thing at the same time. And I was like, that is kind of like being a shock, but okay, whatever. Like, you know, he's just a weird guy like that. He has his own way of defining things. But
Yeah,
dude,
but
if I ever talked to, yeah, go on.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's not. I think he doesn't want to be called a shot caller because he's actually not that good at talking while playing the game.
Right.
So,
okay.
So he's not. So he won't be like sitting playing the game and then while calling everyone what to do. But in the review, he will easily identify like what we should have done or like who is like kind of breaking the team. What's the balance of how we play the match, you know? So what he likes to do, and I also like to do this, but I feel like he was like one level over me when it came to it, so I kind of let him do it a bit more in Origen, whereas I was doing it in Schalke. Right. Is that you look at the replay and you go tell everyone like, hey, here, like you have to do this because the team is wanting to do this, and that's your role in this when that's the situation, and he just does that and then makes sure everyone understands, and that way. The idea is that then when you play the game, you don't have to like tell everyone what to do all the time because you just understand what you want to do and everyone's on the same page. When it comes to like when we make this play, we want you to do this and you to do this, and then so he does that really well, and then he just inside of the game he doesn't like call people exactly what to do, but he still communicates as a support, you know, like I want to engage on the enemy support, but he's not going to say like jungler go gank top now because of this, you know, like he communicates as a normal player, but outside of the game he kind of like rallies the troops and makes sure everyone's on the same page about the game.
Along these lines, though, that's what I was going to say. Basically, the teammates that he's had that I've talked to, especially privately, they make him sound like fucking Yoda out of Star Wars or something. Like, they just say, basically, if he tells you something about the game, like, you're doing this wrong or we should try doing this, they said eventually you just realise, you don't even argue eventually, you're just like, yeah, he's probably just right. Like, we should just do that. It's probably a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, he's just like, he's smart. Like, he also watches VODs, and he's a smart guy, so he can easily like extract what is like the key points from the VODs he watches, and he can see like what's the difference from your gameplay. So I would say, yeah, he can also feel when something is wrong, kind of, when he plays. So yeah, I would say that's mostly right. Yeah, like if he tells you what you should be doing, then you should probably like take it seriously.
Right, I know from doing other interviews about the way that exact Origin lineup later in Season 9 like fell apart and for the playoffs. Like, it sounds like there was I know this is going to be a slightly repeating theme for Season 10, but it sounds like, unfortunately, you can't just look in the server and see how people played and go, right, this guy was shit, or what were they doing there? I've heard it was stuff like, there was like extra stuff outside the server. Like, for example, like maybe you had to keep traveling to a certain place, or you had to go and do media things for the organization, or I know obviously Cold had some like real life issues or something that happened around that time. He couldn't play the regional, like Mithy maybe was burning out in his career. I don't know. What was your vibe? Where was the Nukeduck at this point in time?
Yeah, so I felt like we got a huge hangover at the start from going to Rift Rivals. Like before we went there, we felt pretty good. Everything was kind of like normal. And when we came home, but Rift Rivals was pretty long. I can't remember, but I think we were there for like 3 weeks or something. And yeah, when we came home, we were not, and we were combining it with some other stuff. We were doing some content and whatnot. And then when we came home, we weren't really able to like, find ourselves again. We were not able to like really play good. And that was also reoccurring in practice. So we knew that ourselves that, you know, it was not that we had some unlucky games. We were like, okay, we are actually like not managing to play well. And then there are some different things. We also at that time is where Fabian gets fired because of I don't know, not because he didn't do anything wrong, but he just got fired basically. I think it was because he wanted to like save money, and he's kind of like he was helping us a lot. It's like it's hard for like someone to see his value outside of like just the players and the coach, you know. But he helped a lot, and then we lost him, and then the team was kind of, you know, turning a bit like frustrated because we didn't manage to win. And then I suspect that's also why Jonas got really stressed out, because he isn't as good when we are not controlling the game. You know, he's more of like he's really good at like making and following plans and controlling the game. But when the game is kind of like in enemy control or in like a kind of a chaos state, he is a bit worse. And then when he makes a mistake, then Mithy will of course point it out, or someone else. And then I think in the end that's kind of like stressed him out, and didn't manage to improve after that, because it was like just people were just stressed and annoyed and everything. And then yeah, we ended up like not being managing to. We didn't make it to playoffs that split.
Oh no.
But I do think we ended up losing to
Splice, wasn't it?
3-2, I think. We lost to Splice 3-2. Like but I don't know. I feel like we were not that bad at that point when we lost to Splice. Even for practices, I think we were okay. But I do think we like actually kind of choked a little bit against them in that BO5. I think. Like I think we lost the 5th game with like solo kill mid and solo kill bot, and we still managed to like assign wrongly and let them scale for 40 minutes, even though we were kind of crushing them. So I would say we kind of choked a bit that series.
one thing that's a bit out there, you mentioned obviously the assistant coach, that was who Fabian is that he was referring to, who got fired. And by the way, I would totally, if you understand exactly the time period and some of the things going on in CSGO with Astralis, the organisation, I could totally believe it was a money-saving moment in time, because again, people don't know, just because you have the best CS team in the world doesn't mean your organisation is like G2 size with all like massive investors. You know, they were going through like a lot of organisations, keep money raising every year, and you try and establish assets like an LEC slot. So anyway, that's by the by. But I actually want to ask about another member of the staff. Obviously, the way this guy got fired, Kays, was like, I mean, look, it was like when you got banned in League of Legends. Like he got fired for weird reasons where it's like they said he flamed people in solo queue, then he got fired. But really, like people in the community were sort of sick of him because he just did a lot of like weird tweets or whatever. Like, look, all I'll say is like he was like the guy where it's like, you know, everyone was like, this isn't it, Chief. You know, like that fucking reply everyone used to do. So what I want to ask is this. Even I actually know the guy a little bit, but even without ever asking, if I ever talk to Origin players privately or publicly, they all actually always bring this guy up and mention him. And so I've heard, if people don't know, he was in the Fnatic team when he's an analyst in season 8 that went to the final of Worlds. He was in the Team Liquid team that went to the MSI final, and obviously he was in your Origin team, right? What would you tell me about this guy? Because again, he's another person that actually loads of the people who've worked with him think he was like super good at what he did as an analyst or whatever. So I want to know, what did he do? Like, what was his approach? What was his skill set?
He was super good. I mean, he was super good at like data analyzing data, but he had the second component which makes him like special, which was that he also kind of saw the game. When I talked to him, I really saw that this guy also just understands straight up the game, you know, like not from an analytical point of view, but just he could easily be like a very knowledgeable head coach, I think. So those two things together just made him like a super, super good analyst, I think. And I think it's the best analyst like out there. He doesn't work as an analyst anymore, but when he was an analyst, I think he would be the best analyst out there for sure. But he got fired the next year. So
I've confused it. Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, we lost Fabian 2019 summer, and then we lost the case in 2020 summer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he got like he had some riot thing. The riot find him or something, and
yes.
Then
probably just want to save money again.
Yes, I mean yes. That's what I suspect as well could be the case. Yeah, because there was Corona at this point, and
yes.
And I think the money was tight or something. So yeah.
Fair enough. One thing I want to ask very quickly though is when you say that, right, I get the vibe that like you're not a guy who just came up through ERLs last year. Like maybe in the modern day people do respect the coach and staff and stuff. You're pretty old school, right? And I know a lot of the old school players really did think of the coaches like, look, just look up their fucking win rates on the champions, do the draft. But other than that, you know, sort of shut the fuck up. Like I know how to play mid lane. I don't need you to help me in that sense. So like. It's actually quite rare that people get praise like that for something like that. Like, put it this way, are you a guy who kind of like, do you think other coaches are a bit overrated, or what people think coaching does is overrated?
It can definitely be, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say there is many coaches that can kind of like teach something about the game to like players that kind of know the game well. But Case kind of could, and so I think definitely it's not that's not something I say lightly. Yeah, that I think the guy like knew what he was talking about really well.
Yes. So okay, actually, yeah, I got the timeline wrong there. So for season 10 though, like the place I have to start is this, because when I actually heard this in my interview with Alfari, I remember just thinking like, oh, for fuck's sake, I can imagine the vibe in the team, because you know the story that the fans think about how season 10 started goes like this. So you got upset into the team instead of Patrick, right? That's fine. That's kind of like a side grade or whatever. Maybe if you think upset's better, it's a slight upgrade. Then what happens is, cause Cold's left, you bring in Cersei. Now listen, he was a pretty good player. That's another fine move, right? Then the problem is, we all know the entire drama for the next fucking 6 months was Destiny comes in, right, as the support player. And obviously everyone was flaming him and they thought he was shit and also. But the story people didn't know, and Alfari said it in his, was it was supposed to be Mithy again. That was supposed to be Mithy's in the team, and he said something like that. Like, as far as he knows, that they just offered Mithy like such a ridiculously low amount of money that he was like, fuck this, I'm just going to go and become a coach instead. And then the idea is you had to get someone, so the Destiny guy ended up coming in that sense. Is this how you remember it? Did you want Mithy to stay? What do you think?
I mean, that is also like that's also how I experienced it. Yes, I very much wanted to have Mithy. The whole team wanted to have Mithy. I think in Mithy's opinion, he got offered away too low money, and he just thought it was like kind of pointless because in his eyes, he just came from TSM where most likely. Like he took not the biggest salary, coming back to EU LCS because
no doubt,
he just did not the most good year in NA, and TSM wanted to get rid of him. And he did a 1-year contract, and he proved himself, kind of as like actually he did kind of. I think he proved himself as a top support in EU, and then he got offered, I think, pretty low. So I think he got paid more as a coach, or he could be paid more as a player somewhere else, and it just I think that's why he didn't stay on the team. Yeah, that's what I think happened to.
Now, if people ever follow my Twitter, which, listen, there's a lot of fucking stuff going on there, I probably tweeted about 200,000 times or something mental, right? If anyone ever follows my Twitter, they'll know mainly from the CSGO side that I was one of the people, pretty much, I was just, like the joke would be, if you think of like a fucking movie where someone's a private investigator, I was just basically in the Astralis fucking trash all day long, picking out banana peels and looking for financial papers and stuff, because I was on the trail of finding out what was going on with the CSGO team, like why is the CSGO team, why are players taking breaks, and why are people actually like behind the scenes, I'm hearing this player wants to leave. It's like, what? You won all the majors with them. So I was investigating that, right? And in doing so, I kept finding out info, funnily enough, from people I know in League as well about the Origen team and hearing similar things there. And so we heard these stories like people are getting asked, and here's another thing people might not know. People like you weren't on the largest salaries ever in Origen either. Like if this was more of a team where it's like you can join the team because you can get good, like you can play with Alfari, we can get Mithy in, we can get it's like we can make a good team, but this isn't like G2. We're not all getting paid fucking mega bucks and like going to be millionaires after this. So I heard already if you're in the team, it was sort of like, a bit tighter than people probably realise for how good the team is. But then people are getting asked to take pay cuts. Things like this happen where you don't get to keep a player you want. You have to re-up with people. People are getting burned out. People are leaving the team, right? From your vibe, was this actually something that affected you? Because I know you've said basically in season 10, you've hinted at it basically, that it wasn't just that, like, you didn't just become bad at League of Legends. You didn't just become like a player who doesn't care or only plays a small champion. It seems like something happened to your mental as well, or something happened to your, like, maybe passion for the game or something. Was any of this contributing?
I mean, it's, for me, I mean, I don't think it contributed that much for me. Like, for me, the problem is during the Corona times, when I was like between spring and summer. That's kind of when like I don't go outside at all, almost, and I get like my allergy problem, and basically the whole summer split of 2010. I like have kind of like sleeping troubles the whole time, so I don't think I would really say that.
It wasn't just because of that stuff.
Because they said like I mean it was something like, guys, you guys should need to take pay cut, or people are like, they said something like that, right?
They're gonna fire people, something like that, yeah.
But for me, to be honest, I kind of like when I hear that, I see it for what it is, and I just say like that's just life. I will just keep playing, just if you want to just talk to my agent, maybe, if you want to talk about it.
Okay, that's a good line. That's a good line.
So for me, that didn't impact me much. Because I'd seen the story before. I already did. So for me, it was way more about like my kind of personal situation. That was why this year was bad for me, and I will say that we did, of course, do fine with this team in spring, right?
Yes.
But I do think that that team, the reason we got 10th in that summer split was actually because of that, because of me, because I was kind of the player in that team that had to bind everything together, in my opinion, because at this time So we have probably like Barney is like the best top laner. Like he could pretty much always win top lane, right? And Upset was also, I would say, like he was probably like the best AD, but you know, as well like Cups and
Yeah. But he got underrated, didn't he? Because people were like, he's on the 10th team or so people definitely were saying him shit
he
or whatever.
could be like definitely the best, you know, like
Okay.
probably was the best, let's say, but it means maybe he missed some experience, and then but the thing was, both those players are like kind of laser focused on themselves, right?
Yes.
And also our jungler also was a similar, like Cirx is also like a carry player actually.
Yes.
That's like he likes to farm with carry champs, and then he likes to like carry fights while being ahead. And also Mitch was, or Sport was also not like that big a shot caller. So in the end, the responsibility fell on me that I had to like pull the team together, and I had to kind of be the shot caller and kind of the leader of the team in game to make sure that everything worked. Because otherwise we would kind of just play without a direction. Everyone just play kind of for themselves. Nothing would happen, and in the end we would probably lose. And when I kind of got in spring that worked really well. I would even alter my champion pool for it. I would play like Ornn mid or Maokai mid or something, and focus a lot on like the vision game and shot calling, and making sure that while people were doing their thing, it kind of like made sense together. But in summer split I was not able to do that anymore at all, and because, or like, maybe I could have, but at the time I didn't even realize I had the problem. But I was just really low energy, and I just didn't kind of like, I just didn't have the surplus energy to like play myself and put the whole team together. So I think that was the main thing like lacking actually for us in summer. And I think if I wouldn't have had that problem, then I think team would have been a lot better. Yeah, so that's how I feel about that.
When you say that you having like, sleep problems, like how bad was it? Was it like literally insomnia, like you feel like you don't sleep? Was it just like you only have a few hours? What was it like in that regard?
So basically it was that I would just sleep like maybe, back then I didn't, as I said, I didn't realize I had the problem. I just woke up and I was like, I can't sleep. Okay, I will drink a coffee and we start gaming, and that probably didn't help it as well. But it was that basically I could fall asleep, but I could not stay asleep for long. So right. I probably slept somewhere between like 5 and 6 hours. And I'm a person that I need to sleep a lot to like function optimally. So yeah, that just made me like not. I was not myself, I think, at all that time. So that was how it was. But as I said, I didn't realize it was a problem. Because during the split it's so much like like there is scrims every day is important.
Yeah.
Like you just go, and then it's first when I like when I get home and out of that environment, kind of like that, I realized that okay, there was a problem.
How did you fix it? Because obviously people have seen, like, if they watched this last split, no matter what people thought coming in, you looked like you were back. How did you fix it?
So it did probably turn into like a multitude problem kind of, but it was just realizing that after like living in that kind of like when I say environment, I actually mean my own house, because I was just sitting inside and it was I didn't clean properly and it was dusty and I was kind of like breathing in what I was allergic to every day, and we were never like really going out of my house. It was like lockdown and everything.
Yeah.
And so now I was realizing that after that my body became kind of like hypersensitive against it. So just making sure that everything is really clean and making sure that I use the right kind of like, let's say, products and stuff for that. But also it might have became like kind of stress related as well in the end, because I also kind of that was pretty stressful, this split, and then also the time after was in Astralis was also kind of like stressful. So it was also probably just like completely winding down as well was also important. And those things, it doesn't happen overnight, you need to take some time with it and just that'll be.
Along these lines though, that's something I want to ask is, throughout your whole career, even if the team wasn't always that, even if Vitality or one of the Schalke lineups or even if the team wasn't that good, you were nearly always like still a very good player or one of the better players. And in fact, I even remember in the era when fans were always saying like, oh, he can't be compared to like Caps and Perks and stuff. Dude, if you ever went behind the scenes and talked to exactly that type of player, they would always be like, oh, actually, I think Nukeduck's one of the few players who can sort of like, match up with me or like lane against me or play against me. Like they always gave you their props. So what I want to ask was this: how did you actually handle basically seeing in the game, like, I'm not one of the best during this period. Like, I'm actually, in fact, sometimes maybe I'm the guy who loses the game for the team. Could you handle that? Wasn't it kind of your identity about being one of the best at League of Legends?
Well, so yeah, I mean, it didn't help. I mean, it was not good. Yeah, like I didn't. If you're talking about 2000 and like summer 2010, right?
Yeah, this period where you were having all the problems and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I it was not like good. No, like I mean, but I was just like like kind of exhausted and annoyed, and it was like so I was annoyed, and I didn't know at the time kind of why it was not working, but I mean. But but losing it made it like, let's say, just more like stressful, and it was just like a lot of negative vibes from me during that time because of that, like everything kind of going bad. So yeah, it was, but it was not like I didn't feel like super like it wasn't like
you weren't depressed or anything.
No, not like that. No,
Right.
I was just super negative, let's say. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I wanted to ask about that because there's one thing, right? If I go way, way back, like I said, and I talked to some of the people from the Lemondogs team, like fucking Dexter would be an obvious one, or I talked to Tabs or some specific people, so I'm not picking the ones that you'd show mates. Like I'm sure Zorozero said everything was fine, top and mid carried all the time. It was the other idiots. But here's the thing: if I talk to those people, they'll also not only tell me that funny story about taking all the farm, but they'll also be like, "Oh, Nukeduck was like a very extreme personality. Like he could be a whiner if he didn't like the way things are going, or he didn't get his way." Right? Are you someone over the years, like what's your evolution as like teammate, player? How is it different from if I went back in time with a time machine to you in 2013? Who's Nukeduck today in that sense?
Yes. So I mean, today I'm way more like reasonable, and I only kind of want to win, let's say, and I don't want to ever make my teammates feel uncomfortable with my behavior. So I won't like be negative, especially not inside of the game. And I won't be like, like if I see that they don't want to do something, I'm not gonna like try to push them to do it in the game, because I know that if they don't like, I'm way more considerate now. But back then, you have to also keep in mind back then in season 3 that I pretty much like I kind of ran the strategy for the team, and the strategy was kind of a little bit like, I want to be like that, but it was better than every other EU team strategy. And so for me, like at that time as a 17-year-old, I thought I was almost like the god of the server because of that, So if they were doing like something I didn't want to do, when I like was like kind of controlling it, I would be like kind of annoyed. I would be like, but I would think to myself like, yeah, but I know what we have to do to win, like why are these people doing that? Just follow my lead, that's how I was thinking. So yeah. But now I would say, yeah, I'm just way more balanced like that. I can still definitely help people out, tell them how they should play outside the game and how the team should play and all that. But I don't have like kind of like I don't have an ego about it in a team environment, and I don't and I don't get like annoyed at people, though. It can happen that if someone is like too bad or understands the game too wrong, cannot really comprehend the game while playing the game, then I'm not gonna like talk bad to them, but I will probably give a heads up to the coach or the management or something.
Right.
That, something is like not working. But it's I would say pretty different. Yeah.
Thing is, though, on the same time, like, look, I know everyone, like, as you mature and you learn more about the team game and you play with different players, everyone's going to soften a little bit or figure out how to communicate differently, like you're saying. But I also do feel like if you ever look at great players in any esport, quite frankly, you also do need a little bit of like cockiness and confidence. And sometimes you do have to think that you're better than people. Like I always used to say, right, one of the things I loved about when Lemondogs went to Worlds that time is like you, and I think at the time maybe Froggen, because he'd also said similar things to me, you were two of the only players players in Western players when obviously everyone started to believe Koreans were going to be the best and you could never beat them. You were two of the only ones who actually were basically sort of like fake it. Well, I'll see what it's like when he plays me. Like, well, you guys might be overrated. Now, you actually thought you could beat him or you could win the game, right?
Yeah. I mean, we thought so. Yeah, we thought so. Yeah.
Do you think that's needed to be a star?
I suppose it's like more of the I guess that's needed. Also the feeling of like kind of that you feel like it was for me back then, that my whole like self-worth was kind of based on like being just good at league. So basically we could not afford to like not be the best at any time, but it's like not that sustainable over the long run to think like that, you know. But
sure.
But yeah, so that I sure that can help. Yeah.
When you came back in this XL split here, and as people will know, especially with the roster move, your team was in the mix to potentially go to the playoffs. And I actually would have loved to have seen that. It's just obviously at the end, it was all those crazy wins where all sorts of results were happening. You just missed out on the playoffs, right? When you came into this team, cause fans were just, I remember they didn't know the story about the behind the scenes. They definitely didn't really know the sort of Origen Astralis things going on behind the scenes. Their whole take was like, right, Nukeduck had his chance. He was in those really good teams with good players and he just sucks now and doesn't have any champion pool. And then the logic was they were going, and Youngbuck is just friends with him, so he has recruited him to the team. But I brought Youngbuck on shows, and he was even telling me, no, I had tryouts, I had other players in the tryouts, like Nukeduck actually really did perform. What would you say about your comeback, like coming back to the LEC, coming to LEC? How did it come about from your perspective, and did you expect to come back and be good again? Was it supposed to go the way it went?
Right, so how it started was that obviously like I was on Astralis and I had to stop playing. So I told them, I told them I can't play anymore. Like I gotta go home. I gotta get out of here. Like I can't sleep. I cannot play. I cannot do anything. And then, so I do go home. And then at this timing, I'm kind of thinking like, okay, I'm probably gonna try to recharge. And I'm probably gonna try to get well for summer split, And playing summer split with Astralis was kind of the plan, right? But then we made an agreement that we would like terminate the contract, and so we did that. And then from that point, I'm just kind of cruising. I'm not really expecting to get that offer because I was also not like looking for a team. I didn't like my agent not looking for a team. I'm not telling anyone I'm looking for a team. But Fabian, the
old coach, yeah.
My old in Schalke and in Origen, he was working as the sports psychologist, or like but he was kind of like a second coach, just not like that much in game. But he was around the team, like full time around the team though. And he basically tips the Excel that if I'm in like good condition, then I'm really good, and that they can, if they have a really good chance to pick me up right now. I think he told that to them. And then they ended up reaching out to me, and then Fabian convinced me that he will like work with me very closely about like the my sleep problem and stuff, because I'm not sure if it's getting better, but I'm not sure if getting worse if I'm going down there and all that. But he promised me that he will work very hard with me and we'll make sure it's good. So so he convinced me to join again for the summer split, and I would not join if I didn't think that, that I'm not joining to like play bad, because that's not fun at all. So I did go there. I was hoping like I could play good, and I hope that we could make it to playoffs, So it didn't go exactly to plan. There was a bit like, it was a bit turbulent in the team at the start because, as you know, we did like do the roster change in week 3.
Yes.
And personally, myself, I just saw that after playing for four scrim days with the team, I pretty much already told my coaches and stuff that I think that we need to do like roster change, because I didn't really see us going to playoffs with the team, and so that was a bit back and forth there. And then Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like all in all, it went pretty okay. It could have been going better, like from my side, and from like others. What do you say? Other sources side.
Yes.
It could have other things could have also gone better, but I could have also done better.
Seemed like there was a lot of games that you lost that like were super close, or you were in a good position. Like it was one of those splits, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had many things. Like once we got, once we got Advien and Mark, I think we became like kind of a pretty decent team. Like I'm not gonna say good because we also lost but we were able to like create leads, play aggressive, get early game leads like against many of the best teams, and against like 3 games against top teams, when we have Baron, we're just like we just win the team fight, we take Baron, we're kind of winning the game, we're like overdive and end up losing the game like at least 2 of the games with Baron when we're kind of like in theory coming to end the game. And we also lost, but also it was hard because my Advien and Markun, they became pro players during Corona. So when we went on stage, now started going on stage, it was actually their first stage games in their careers. And even so, they played really well. But it was also, I think there was also definitely some nerves at play.
Yeah, understandably.
Yeah, and we also had the other game, and yeah. In the end, I think the play was not super bad, but yeah, our result wasn't good enough. So.
You say it there, like you took, like you sort of shared in the blame, or like it wasn't the best for me as well. Like this seemed like a pretty good split, mate. Like I even thought when you had like the not that good roster at the beginning, you were like carrying some of the games that you lost.
Yeah, I mean, I did carry some games for sure. I just feel like I had a few games where I could have done better, but so I didn't feel like I played like like a perfect split or anything. Like I had a few games where I feel like could have done better, and then but all in all, it was a positive, I would say, because I did carry some games and did play pretty well, I think, and I did. Also help the team as much as I could, so it was overall like positive. Yeah, it just could have been better also.
I said earlier about how fans thought like it's just Caps and Perks and the mid laners and everyone else is shit basically in LEC, right? When I said that story before about how they were even telling me like you were matching up well and all of this, right? What I want to ask was this. I also got the feeling, especially with Caps, because of how he plays, like super greedy, hold flash, like do bait people in, obviously super mechanically good. I also feel like Caps has almost got some shit in Europe where the other mid laners, it's like when people used to play against Faker and stuff, they just like give up before the game started. Like they think, oh, he's just better than me, like I can't win. What's the secret? Because you've been against these guys in their prime, even when you weren't necessarily in your prime. What's the secret to playing against players like that? Like how do you mentally keep it together or think you can still win the game?
Well, it's very okay. So first of all, in laning phase, that's not where either of them make like their huge lead. So I think in laning phase, Caps is good, but like you shouldn't really lose lane. Like most players should be able to you just gotta know like your champion and the matchup, and then. Later on in the game, it's like him and G2 are very good at kind of like playing on the edge the whole time. So, but I'm not sure. Like they are just very good. But I don't know. Give up before the game starts. Yeah, I would. My advice would be definitely not to do that. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure I have a good advice for it. Yeah.
Fair enough. What about this then? I actually have an old school question for you. Right, everyone knows way back, if we go to season 4, that was when Zorozero was in his prime, because that was when, even though they like gimped the top lane completely and made everyone fucking play tanks, and like their idea of like a carry was like Renekton back then, which obviously just carries for like the first 20 minutes only anyway. Right, in this era, everyone knows he was super, super good. In fact, there's this famous story where when we saw, me and Monty, that you guys lost that fucking promotion game against Millennium, we were like, awesome, because actually we want to ask Zorozero to join CLG. This is perfect. But then famously, he was just like, nah, I'm actually just leaving League of Legends entirely. And obviously, technically, he was never seen since, I believe, like a solo queue account came back a few years and played a couple of games or whatever. So now he's become sort of like a myth in history, right? Because even though he only played a couple of years, some people think he's like, you know, he was like the promised one who was supposed to be like the god top laner from Europe forevermore, right? You had a pretty good relationship with him. Obviously, as you said, in your teams, it was basically like solo lanes and most of the time, right? Did you ever keep in contact with him? Was he ever really close to coming back? Should he have kept playing a few years? What's your take on it all?
I think he wanted to come back in like season 7 or 8 or something, but he didn't want it like badly. So he did play solo queue a bit, and
right.
It didn't go like that well, and I don't know how long he tried, but he did give up like after not that long, you know, like if you're gonna come back after 5 years, I think you have to expect at least to spend a year playing solo queue probably before, you know, something really happens for you. If it was the right choice, well, at the time for him, there is like this school rule in Denmark that after you can have 2 years off from high school before like your whole high school progress gets deleted and you have to start again. So so I think he took 2 years because he was young, 1 year older than me. So I think he took 2 years and he was going to do his third, but then he stopped for 2 years, and then he had to come back, or he would have to start all over again when presumably he would quit, so he would lose 2 years of his life when he quit. Yes. Or he could probably do 2 years in one, I mean, if he really wanted to when he's an adult. But so that's why he did it, I think. And I think also he was a bit like demotivated from playing. What was it? So that was a...
that's a good answer.
Yeah, and he was very good. He was like a complete grind machine. In our house, it would be like you would not be able to reach him because he would have his music so loud, and he would just sit and queue up like the whole day basically. And he was the kind of guy that could play the same champion like, I don't know, 100 games in a row just to make sure that, you know, it's perfect. So he would be sitting. So whatever the meta would be, like he would be just playing the meta. Like he would play like Shyvana or Mundo top for like hundreds of games in a row when that became the meta, which is the one you're talking about, I think.
Yes, and, I actually remember even, dude, I think when I did my reflection, Grilled or whatever it was called back then, when I did an interview with him back then, because obviously at the time it was when all my favourite players from top lane, like people like Soaz, they were all just telling me, like, this fucking sucks, this game, like, I hate this role, like, you know, I hate all the champions, I'm just waiting for them to fix it. He was saying exactly, he embraced it. In fact, he was even telling me, I think he's the only player to ever answer this. When I said something like, you know, if you hear about the Koreans and they just practice all day and you just sitting around, I think he said something meant like he thought he was the one player who could do it. He was like, yeah, I think I could go and do that. I could just be in Korea and basically be like those Korean machines. So the story makes sense, mate. It adds up what I'm saying.
I mean, of course, he would enjoy to do that. You know, like that's what he liked to do. He liked to do that, I think. Really, yeah.
Right, one thing I wanted to ask was, if people look at your career, one of the things that's not a great storyline is obviously a million times in the gauntlet you were close to going to Worlds and it didn't happen. And you only got to go to Worlds that time ages ago, right at the beginning of your career, basically. So added to that, there's the other detail that you are one of the players who's been in a lot of finals but hasn't won the LEC. It hasn't happened for you. So I want to ask, like, are you a player, like, do you actually try to have set goals? Like, is, like, win LEC still a goal? Is go to Worlds a goal? Is there something else that drives you? What keeps Nukeduck playing the game now?
Well, so I do really want to go to Worlds and I do really want to win the final, but I don't view it as like either it was a success or it was a total failure. When I play a split, I enjoy the competition. So regardless, I have some sort of enjoyment from playing. And then if I put in the right amount of work and did what I was supposed to do in order to try to win during the split, and I do perform well, then it does suck, you know, the moment that you lose, but overall it's still an experience that I enjoy, like the process of, you know, practicing with the team, getting better, showing that in official matches and just playing and being around, like-minded people, because
Sure.
other people that are pro league players that are very similar to me, kind of, and I just like the whole team environment, and I don't so I don't know if I would call it a goal, those are the goals, yeah. But it's not that if I don't reach them in a split, it's a complete failure, yeah. Like I'm want to play and perform, either way.
As you said earlier in the interview, nowadays, it's instead of just getting basically like almost minimum wage, but it's cool you get to play video games. Obviously now everyone can earn very healthy salaries. And in fact, people will know the reason why you now get players again going over to NA is sometimes if you get on a top team there, you can actually become a millionaire. It's ridiculous how much money there is, right? I know obviously way back in the day, you must have maybe had the odd offer, a few teams inquire. Did you in the latter years, was there ever a time where you ever considered go to NA? Was it ever even on the horizon for you?
It was, but it was, but it's I just decided against it, like when I was free agent back then, in season after season 8, I was in contact with basically, like, I was in contact with many teams back then, and there was definitely like some NA teams, but I just decided that it looked hard. It was not those teams it was not at Team Liquid where they had like 3 good American players, or it was yeah. I don't know. I just felt like I would prefer more to be in Europe. It was some more money, but it was also just it was not like astronomically more, and I prefer to play in Europe overall. Yeah, so it's I did consider it, but it's it just fell through. Like I just decided not to go with it.
Okay. Right at the end here, I thought, since you've had such a long career and you've been on all these teams with some really amazing teammates, I wanted to just do like some short questions, and it's just like a simple quality. So here's what I want to ask. Who is the most skilled player Nukeduck has played with?
Skilled player? I think it's Upset, probably. Yeah, Upset.
Okay. What about, who is the most clutch player that you've played with? Good under pressure.
I think that's probably Chachi. My gut just tells me Chachi, so I'm gonna say Chachi.
Okay, and then the last one. This is like more of a open question. It just basically is: who is the player that you played with who had the most unrealized potential? Like they could have just been, I don't know, fucking unbelievable, but the skill was there, the potential, but it just maybe it didn't ever fully get realized. Who would you pick for that?
Instantly, I'm thinking Amin, but I'm gonna also think a bit.
If people don't know, that was a jungler who was in like the challenger scene. Then when he finally like turned old enough, like he sort of vaguely tried to come to LEC, but it never really happened properly. I don't think.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go with Amin. Yeah, it was my my jungler in season 4, and he was not old enough to play with us promotion tournament.
On the LAN, yep.
And then he didn't really. I think he was banking on joining us when he was old enough in the LCS or something, but at least he didn't try to make his own way in the league scene. But I think he was, but it also I also had very good synergy with him, so like that could also. But yeah, I think he was super good. I think he's definitely the one. Yeah.
Okay. At the end of this interview, do you have any final words? Someone you want to thank, say hello to?
No, I'll just thank everyone who watches it, and thank you for supporting me and this interview.
Yeah, tusen tack.
Yeah, tack.
This video was kindly supported by Lager15, Matt Pugnatio Ricula, Scapperin, Travis Goff, Zach Smid, Adam Oaks, Alexander Rao, Animosity, Butt Pounder 420, Chris, Hades, J-Dubs, Jensen Go, John Shelton, Joseph Ginsberg, Kovacevic, Tobias Bernasconi, Zumba, Zyrathenia, and as always, a special thanks goes out to both Jerky's Minion and DZL. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Would you like to ask a question for my monthly AMA? Want teasers for upcoming content or interview guests have I done, etc.? Do you want to take part in one of those donated discussions? Well, if you want any of the above and previously mentioned, put your money where your mouth is and join the Screwluminati today at the description box link to Patreon.